The state of Oregon has effectively shut down small farms and market gardens on a large scale.
Oregon, once a thriving agricultural state, is now facing a devastating crisis that threatens to wipe out its small farms. New regulations, coupled with water shortages and government surveillance, have placed a chokehold on these vital businesses. As farmers struggle to survive, the state's food security is at stake.
Oregon, while it's known for great wine, great seafood, great berries, when it comes to producing hazelnuts, there's no other place in the United States that even comes close.
In this video, we'll explore the root causes of Oregon's farm crisis, examine the devastating impact on small farmers.
It's very difficult, not just for me, on the economic side, but emotional side as well.
And discuss the potential consequences for the state's food supply. Join us as we delve into this urgent issue and explore the fight for the future of Oregon's agriculture. Predators at the top. Many people are questioning the ultimate goal behind the bureaucrats' actions and what might happen to Oregon if large corporations take over and control the state's resources. It seems this could be an opportunity for these corporations to generate massive profits, build generational wealth, and gain significant influence over Oregon's politics and decision-making. This situation feels like a hostile takeover, driven by greed and a disregard for the less privileged. The small farm destroyers are overlooking critical details that could undermine their plans, such as the fact that California is facing a severe food and water crisis. This makes small farms crucial for food production, as even large-scale farms struggle to meet the growing demand during times of food insecurity. Similarly, Colorado's severe drought has led to the shutdown of millions of farms due to insufficient rainfall and adverse weather. Over 10,000 acres have suffered from extreme drought this year, leading to the closure of wells that irrigate large farms to conserve water. In contrast, Oregon's small farms could play a vital role in filling the gap if a similar crisis were to hit. Instead of supporting and expanding these farms, the state is destroying them.
Oregon, while it's known for great wine, great seafood, great berries, when it comes to producing hazelnuts, there's no other place in the United States that even comes close.
Small farms, even those with just a few animals, are being harassed by agencies that should be protecting them without any empathy or reconsideration. The underlying agenda behind these actions is becoming more apparent. The new CAFO regulations and the secret surveillance operations are fueling concerns about whether the rights of citizens and small business owners in Oregon are being respected. The state's focus on creating laws that secure their interests while maintaining control might come at the expense of the people's well-being. Oregon is in turmoil, and if these trends continue, the state's future looks increasingly bleak. The ongoing destruction of small farms and the lack of support for sustainable practices suggest that Oregon could be heading towards a serious crisis. Farm problems in Oregon. Recently, Oregon has been struggling with problems affecting its ecosystem, plants, and farming. Though these issues might not seem urgent at first, they have a big impact on the state's progress and economy. In the past, Oregon was known for its successful farming and agriculture. Many people did small-scale or home farming to grow fruits and vegetables, while others were involved in ranching. But these activities have been declining due to worsening water shortages. Despite efforts to manage the problem, water levels are still too low for small farmers, leading the government to cut off their water supplies and focus on conservation. In a video that went viral, a young rancher expressed his frustration by showing footage of himself on his farm. He claimed that the government is targeting Oregon's small farms and market gardens, trying to shut them down completely.
It's very difficult, not just for me, on the economic side, but emotional side as well.
He said farm owners received cease and desist letters, effectively making their farming activities illegal. This is troubling since these farms provide jobs and help prevent food shortages in Oregon. At first, many people were skeptical of the rancher's claims because he remained anonymous and hid his face. It seemed unlikely that the Oregon government would take such extreme measures. However, other residents confirmed that farms were indeed being shut down, supporting his story. They reported that the government used satellite technology to find these farms and then sent out the shutdown letters. This discovery, though unfortunate, turned out to be true and put people in a difficult situation. The media, including Yanasa TV, investigated and found that small farms were wrongly classified as large animal feeding operations, leading to their closure. The government claimed this was for public and environmental protection, but was actually trying to take land from ordinary people to sell to big companies. Some people pointed to Bill Gates, who owns over 269,000 acres of land across 20 states, as evidence of a larger problem. While there are no limits on land purchases, many argue that farmland ownership should be more balanced rather than dominated by a single person. This trend is worrying, and there are fears that other states might follow suit, causing further challenges. According to the Post Journal, some even suggest that Bill Gates has started buying farmland in Kenya, where white farmers are being displaced and sometimes killed, highlighting the potential global impact of these practices. Unbalanced water rationing. For many outside of Oregon, it's puzzling why small farmers are being forced to shut down instead of simply obtaining permits. The frustrating reality is that the state prioritizes granting water permits to larger, more profitable businesses rather than to small half-acre farms. Although it seems like the water guidelines are a recent issue due to water shortages, they've actually been in place since 1909, when water supplies were more than enough for all needs. Back then, the water code had just two principles. Water is public property, and it could be allocated for beneficial use through a permit. Unfortunately, Oregon's government hasn't updated this code to reflect current conditions, making it nearly impossible for small farms to meet the outdated criteria. Obtaining a water permit in Oregon seems straightforward, but the reality is that the requirements and waiting period can be a death sentence for small businesses. While small farmers can access some water sources for around $300, their tight profit margins and the lack of rainfall make it difficult to sustain these costs. In contrast, large industries and commercial farms can easily absorb the cost of more than 5,000 gallons of water per day. They can afford the fees, and their operations can secure permits while generating significant profits. Holding small farms to the same standards is like setting them up to fail. Adding to the frustration, Oregon's water usage tracking has been controversial. The state's detailed records of water use seem overly accurate, almost as if they were using the water themselves rather than monitoring it for others. When the methods behind this tracking were exposed, many felt alarmed and disillusioned. It became clear that authorities were less concerned about the impact on small farms and more focused on a broader agenda to eliminate these operations.
A small farm like what we have, it makes it untenable, not just from a business perspective, but from just a total property ownership perspective.
The suspicion grew that this might be part of a larger strategy to push small-scale farmers out of Oregon. The situation worsened when it was revealed that the Oregon Department of Justice had been conducting illegal surveillance through a program known as the Oregon Titan Fusion Center. This operation collected and analyzed intelligence on residents exercising their constitutional rights, such as freedom of speech and assembly, without public knowledge. This covert surveillance, which clearly violated citizens' rights, has raised serious concerns about bureaucratic priorities and the future of small farms in Oregon. It suggests that the shutdowns might not just be regulatory failures, but part of a larger, more troubling strategy. Adding to the challenges, small farmers face high association fees and unattainable requirements once they are classified as concentrated animal feeding operations, KFOs. The regulations are often excessively complex and costly for modest farms that primarily manage a few dairy cows and some vegetables. For example, the infrastructure needed for CAFOs, like advanced drainage and holding systems, is far beyond what small farms require or can afford. Many small farmers are left struggling with these disproportionate demands, leading some to shut down their operations. However, there is hope. Dairy farmers in Oregon have begun to resist these burdensome policies, successfully challenging and temporarily overturning regulations that required them to meet industrial-scale standards. Sarah King, a small dairy farmer, questions why small farms should be held to the same standards as large operations with hundreds of cows. This pushback is a crucial step toward ensuring that small-scale farming remains viable and sustainable in Oregon. What changed? Recently, Oregon has faced a dramatic shift that has put farmers in a tough spot. The change in regulations, especially around concentrated animal feeding operations, CAFOs, has made it incredibly hard for small-scale farmers to continue their work. Previously, farms with just a few animals, like 2 milking cows and some chickens, could be classified as CAFOs if they had pathways made of rock or gravel. The new rules have made this classification even broader, impacting nearly everyone with a small farm. A lawsuit filed in January challenged these new definitions, arguing that they unfairly target small family farms and backyard egg producers. The lawsuit led to a temporary halt in farm closures, but also exposed the problematic nature of the new CAFO regulations. The rules now lump together small-scale farmers with large operations, applying the same strict standards regardless of farm size. For example, a small farm with just a few chickens and a short gravel pathway is treated the same as a large commercial operation. One notable case is Godspeed Gallo Farm in Newburgh. The farm received a cease and desist letter and was fined thousands of dollars for having a gravel pathway and a small milking machine. The story gained widespread attention and sparked anger about the unfair treatment of small farmers. Many others also reported similar issues, drawing global concern. The lawsuit has pressured the CAFO system to find fairer solutions and suspend the shutdowns of small farms. Farmers and residents are struggling with unexpected food shortages and financial losses due to the disruption. If the lawsuit succeeds, the CAFO regulations might be revised to be more reasonable. However, small farmers are also battling severe water shortages. Water laws in Oregon restrict access to most water sources except rainfall, which has been scarce recently. Farmers can't use city water or water from private wells for irrigation without special permits, and the process for obtaining these permits is complicated. As a result, small farms are struggling to keep their livestock and crops alive, facing high costs and limited water. The situation seems especially harsh because small farms use far less water compared to large commercial operations. While industrial and commercial farms get a daily ration of about 5,000 gallons, small farms typically use less than 500 gallons. This discrepancy has led many to question why small farms are being targeted when they play a crucial role in local food production and are more environmentally friendly compared to larger operations. One example is Oak Song Farm, run by Cristina Del Campo, who has been a key local supplier of fresh produce. She was recently told she couldn't use irrigation without water rights, despite having done so for years. This restriction has led to a decrease in her crop supply, disappointing her customers and causing food shortages in her community. The lack of clear explanation for these restrictions and the rapid decline of her business highlight the challenges faced by small farms under the new regulations. Overall, the struggle of small farmers in Oregon is a complex issue involving new, overly broad regulations and severe water shortages. The ongoing lawsuit and public outcry are efforts to bring fairness back to the farming community and ensure that small farms can continue to thrive. The crisis facing Oregon's small farms requires a comprehensive solution. Oregon must reform CAFO regulations, ensure water access, support local agriculture, and investigate government surveillance. By taking these steps, the state can protect its food security and ensure a sustainable future for its communities. What do you think? How can Oregon address the challenges facing its small farms? Share your thoughts in the comments below.